Just surviving the heat, boy.
Yep.
What are you saying? You're looking red, my friend.
Yep. Fucking 3 consecutive 13-hour days working outside.
Yeah, well, that's the life. All right, David. It's been a while, brother. So, what are we talking about today?
Well, there's some content being talked around the Neos. So I can't mention any names because I was told that if I mention the names of other people, I'm doing that to look for validation, or I have to mention somebody else to be relevant with my content. So I won't mention anybody since that's how they feel. That's how they say I have to act in the public. But yeah, so a couple videos were made about Neos talking bullshit, regurgitated information from the same two breeders that like to talk to the young, aspiring guys in the breed. And I watched the video, heard, I'm like, this is crazy. So we're gonna make a little video about the Neos and rectify some of the bullshit that's been said.
K King, what's up, buddy?
K King.
God. K King, I haven't said that name in a while.
Yeah.
Buddy, that's how long it's been. So yeah, I think when was it? It's probably like almost 2 years ago. We did that first Neo video. I think it was like the third, maybe like the third live we ever did.
Yep.
A precursor to that, I was in talks with somebody for at least a few months, I think. I'd say pretty decent dude, pretty decent guy. Got quite a bit of information regarding his opinions on the Neapolitan Mastiff, and that man is a good talker. That man talks smooth. Like, buddy, he had me getting ready to just up and leave Corsos, bro. I'm about to go right to Neos. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff with the dogs, it is fact, but it's a ton of opinions. Everybody has their own opinion, and I'm always like, get all the opinions you can and find the truth from that. Because a lot of stuff I think I learned back then was it was good information. I mean, we had some information, but then I find that it got at odds with other ways of my thinking about, like how could this be, or how could this dog turn out like this? Like some stuff didn't add up for me. So then we talked to other people, and we talked to more people, and we talked to more people. And then that's how we have come to our opinion. So by all means, let the strongest opinion stand and let that turn into fact.
Yeah. So basically, I agree with Kareem said. I talked to that same guy about Neos for months on end. He's like Kareem said, smooth talker. He knows how to manipulate your thought process and kind of get you on his side. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of it is opinion, but a lot of it's bullshit. If you know anything about animals, livestock, breeding, all this generality that we speak of is bullshit. So for what we're going to touch on first, I think, is this idea that the Neo is this super pure dog, just super pure. It's been the purest breed on breed type of dog forever. What are we talking about? We've seen the Italians clearly crossing the Neos throughout the years. The Americans have crossed the Neos throughout the years. What has brought these certain people to this, opinion or idea that the Neo is the purest breed? There's so many valid, what do you want to say? Valid arguments to show that the dogs have been mixed.
Well, I think yeah, sorry. I think it's even being said by a lot of those guys as well. Like you have, I believe his name is Umberto Leone. He's an Italian breeder, and he had Neos. But there's a video that shows that, on his yard there were multiple other breeds. There were Great Danes, they were English Mastiffs, a ton of other dogs, which you would cross into a Neo to improve or add certain traits into the dogs. So, I mean, that alone shows you, like, if you have X amount of breeds that could be crossed into this dog to improve it, and they're on your yard, what are you really doing there? And then there's another breeder from the States. It was known that she was sold Neos crossed with, I believe, Newfoundlands, I believe it was. And that's common knowledge. And they openly sold this person those dogs, and those dogs were bred in the States to other Neapolitan Mastiffs. So right there, the bloodline is contaminated right off the bat. So, how could you tout and say it's the purest breed when the Italians themselves, that's just one instance where they're crossing those dogs in and, you know, selling the dogs to the States or who knows where else they go. And then there you go. You got crossbred Neos. There's also other instances, like you could look at kennel videos. I know David posted a ton of videos lately. I believe that they're coming public now of old shows. There's a 30-year-old Italian show. There is a show in New Jersey. There's a show that shows an American breeder's yard of his Neapolitan Mastiffs and him showing his dogs in. They do not look the typical way of some of those Neos. So I mean, right there, I mean, do your eyes deceive you?
Yeah.
Or, are my lying eyes telling me something else? It's like, don't look at something that seems suspicious and question it. I believe you have to question everything. So I think that's the basis of this video. Whereas, are my eyes lying to me? And I don't think they are. I think the dogs are mixed like everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a thing. Everybody acts like, oh, the DNA and the RNA are showing that the Neos are the purest, blah, blah, blah. The DNA shit's all bullshit. We're not going to go too deep into that, but just let it be known. Everybody knows the American molasses dogs. That guy, I forget what his fucking name is. He crossed the English Mastiff with the Neo to make this American molasses. That's an even bigger shit bag than the English Mastiff or the Neo itself. It's a complete fucking just utter monstrosity. I've seen those dogs, and they're just English Mastiff and Neo mixed. And I've seen those dogs DNA out at 100% Neapolitan Mastiff. So tell me how those dogs are DNAing out pure Neo. They clearly have English Mastiff put in them. Make it make sense. That's one argument I have with that. I've seen other dogs DNA out pure Neo with everybody knows they have something crossed into them. Then my second part is that guy himself. Like I said, I can't think of his name. He goes by Old World Mastini or Old World Mastino, something like that, or Old World Neapolitan Mastiff, something like that. I think is his name Curtis? I think it's Curtis.
Not too sure. I know who you're talking about, though.
Yeah, this guy made it public on multiple interviews where he said and he's a long outstanding Neo breeder. He said that multiple heavy Neo breeders in the show scene, his friends, were encouraging him to do the English Mastiff Neapolitan Mastiff cross and then give them a puppy so they could run that back into their Neos to get an outcross, get a shot of fresh blood, improve some things. So if long outstanding Neo breeders are trying to convince this guy, because most of them are too afraid to do the cross, right? Most of them are too afraid to do the cross because people come on their yard, they'll see what they're doing. But they're not afraid for somebody else to do the cross and then reap the benefits and bring in that already crossed dog and cross it back in. So it's been said that Neo breeders are willing to do that or wanting another man to cross them so they could get the dogs and cross back into their program. So if they're willing to say that, they're willing to do that today, what makes you think that they're not willing to do that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 fucking years ago? They've been crossing shit into these dogs. You see Neapolitan Mastiffs that look uncanny to the English Mastiff. The same brindling pattern, the same head structure and face and muzzle. The Neos are crossed. They're crossed just as much as any other breed. So that's another point I wanted to bring up. Another subject we want to touch on within the Neo thing now is they're talking about the Neos have always come big, sloppy, heavy, wet, wrinkled, heavy bone. Fucking Kareem knows it just as well as I do. The Neo people know just as well as I do. That's bullshit. Show me an extreme type of Neo that is today, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Now, I'm not saying that they've never not been one or two examples that are extreme for the time, but there is no Neo of today that you can show me a picture of the weight, the size, the caliber, the extremeness of the Neo today back in the day. 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Bullshit. They've never come that extreme. They've slowly, or not even slowly, they've rapidly increased in bone size and just extremeness. Yeah.
Yeah. Like extreme.
They've never come. You look back at Wyone. Was Wyone heavy, extreme wrinkled. There's that one picture where they have the choker, and everybody thinks Wyone was wrinkly and heavy because they have the choker pulled up on the back of the neck, pushing all the wrinkle and all the dewlap forward. But when you see the clean cut pictures of Wyone from the side, where there's nobody touching the collar on the neck, the dog was as clean as could be.
Yeah, I agree, because you could do that with the Corso as well. Like, you can take a dry dog, you could take one of the driest dogs and then just reef that collar up and just bunch up the dewlap and, you know, pushing all the wrinkles on the face, and the dog looks like a complete different dog. And I believe a lot of the times when people are stacking their dogs out for pictures, that's exactly what they're doing. You know, you're trying to make this dog look more extreme than it actually is. But I mean, I think I'm going to go to, I believe a lot of those pictures are also quite deceptive, even when it comes to the size of the dogs. Because when you see those dogs stacked up to men, women, a lot of those dogs are like under the knee, like right under the knee, which makes you believe like those dogs aren't as tall as they seem when they're standalone by themselves in pictures. But when they're stacked out near their handlers, the dogs look significantly smaller.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, that's gonna you know, trigger the argument that Neos are bred on that recessive dwarfism gene. So it's like, you know, are they going to come that into play? And it's like, well, they're being bred and bred and bred onto themselves. That's why they're short and extreme looking. So I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions to how the dogs are portrayed at this point in time. But yeah, I think another thing we were talking about prior to that is, you know, a lot of those Neos, I believe it's like they cross Great Dane to a very large degree. We were going back to the Satilli stuff where we're like, you know, maybe the Corso came about not because he was trying to make Corsos, but he was trying to improve the rear ends on his Neos. You know, so he added Rottweiler, and because what will improve a rear end structure on a dog better than a Rottweiler that has a phenomenal rear end?
Yeah, I want to cut in there. That's another thing that's changed rapidly. You've seen over the last, I'm gonna just say, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, rear ends on Neos have always been completely shit. Straight stifles, cowhocked, easty westy in the front, just shitty rears. And now all of a sudden, you see all the Neos hitting the show circuit. Their rear ends are better, look better than Rottweilers. They have such extreme angulation. They have such squared up rear ends, rear hindquarters. The muscling is better than it's ever been. You don't go an entire you don't go within all this span of the breed, the Neo, with shit rears. Then all of a sudden, the last 5 to 10 years, the Neos just develop an extremely great rear ends. That shit does not just manifest itself. It takes crossing in something else to get that trait. Especially when these Neo people do not inbreed and line breed. They can't. They say that they can't because the dogs just implode on themselves. So if you're not inbreeding and line breeding on these dogs, and inbreeding and line breeding on these traits to acquire these phenomenal rear ends, if you're outcrossing or having to maintain a very low COI or COR, tell me how you're manifesting these great rears out of thin air.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like another argument that I find hard to follow is, you know, everybody says this Neapolitan Mastiff was maintained and this dog, you know, was a hunting dog and was used to catch wild game for X amount of years. And then, you know, if you were breeding a dog for that over time for function, how did it end up to these extremes? How did you get to these extreme versions of the Neapolitan Mastiff? And don't get me wrong, I can appreciate a good looking extreme type Neo. I can be like, yeah, that dog's cool. That dog's super cool. But I mean, I know that there had to be something put in there to make it look like that. There's a lot of dogs that look let me just hit some comments real quick.
Yeah.
Get into the comment section real quickly. We got ACR Blood. Facts. We have Aline Rocha. She says, thanks. We have John Catchin in the comments. You know, that guy's a long time Neo guy. You know, provided a lot of information, a lot of
step foot on all the big name Neo breeders yards back in the day.
And had proof with it. There a lot of videos, a lot of pictures. Yep. So he's John's backed up all his points.
John's provided more of a historical look into the Neo the last 30 or 40 years than half of these long outstanding breeders that hide all that information and just show you what they're breeding today.
Yep. Comment says Old Man Kiso crossed in Rottweiler. Yeah, wouldn't doubt it. A lot of the dogs in the New Jersey show, I remember when we were looking at it, and I was like, looking and kind of dissecting the video, and I was like, that dog looks like it has a large amount of Great Dane blood in it. Just the height of the dog, the way that the head's set, the some of the tails are so incredibly narrow. Like the tails are so tapered and thin, and I'm like,
just the absence of bone. That's what I'm saying.
That
when they say that these dogs have come this way forever, like I said, there's always extremes in every breed at certain times throughout history. But when you compare an extreme Neo from the 40s, 50s, and 60s to even a common, just your run-of-the-mill Neo today in 2025, not even close. They're not even close. So they've not always came that way. They've not even slowly. They've rapidly progressed to the monstrosity that you see today. And everybody tries to lie to you. All these different Neo breeders act like, well, there's no working Neo and no show Neo. They're all supposed to be the same. They're all supposed to be be able to do. And how do you physically expect that to be possible when you look at a 200-pound Neo is not a functional dog? There's no 200-pound dog that's a functional dog that can do what a dog should be able to do. So anyway, I don't want to get too much into that because we have other points that I want to touch on. I'm trying to think what the other point was. They always come wrinkled and whatnot. And that's a fallacy.
Yeah, I can agree with that. You figure out the points. I'm just gonna list some things that were on my mind when we were talking before. I mean, also with the Neo, it was said that the dog du Bordeaux derived from the Neapolitan Mastiff, and it was a long distance line breeding of that dog. But then they started breeding them into each other to, I guess, stabilize the blood again of the Neo or give it something else. Yep. Give it a new shot of blood. But I mean, didn't you cross something into a Neo to make the dog du Bordeaux to then take it back to the Neo? So arguably, isn't that just saying that the dog itself is not pure? And if you stick to that same key point that you're allowed to do that with the Neo, then when people do that with Corsos, why is there such a problem? You know what I mean? So it's like, why is it, you're allowed to do this for this breed, but you're not allowed to do this for this breed?
I remember the other point. That's a good point you had there. I'll bring this up while I'm thinking about it so I don't lose track. But they talked about this other video talks about the Cane Corso, the Cane Depressa, and the Neapolitan Mastiff. They're saying that's all three the same dog. Complete and utter bullshit. The way I break it down, the way I understand it, I believe Kareem will talk on it, but I think he thinks the same way. If we're starting off Cane Corso, is just a Neo or a Cane Depressa hybrid. It's just a Neo or it's a current Neo or an old Neo crossed to whatever other breed. Doesn't really fucking matter. That makes a hybrid that is more athletic and more functional than the Neo. That was a Corso. Now, yes, way back, when we're talking way back, 30s, 40s, 50s, the Neos were not an established breed. Therefore, they would throw athletic dogs because there was other dogs crossed in, and you would get Corso type dogs out of litters, like I said, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I'll come and touch back to that. Then the Cane Depressa. The Cane Depressa was the original name for the Neo before the standardization of the breed, where they changed the name to the Neapolitan Mastiff. So anything, I forget what time that is. The time frame is not important. But whatever year that they were standardized and accepted as a breed, they changed the name. That's where the break was in the name. Then forward, it was Neapolitan, but before that, it was always Cane Depressa. So, and it is two different things because you think about it, during the time period where it was Cane Depressa pre-standardization, well, there was no registry, there was no binding factors to limit you on a closed stud book or who you could breed with or what you could breed with. So the Conde de Presa is kind of a neo hybrid of sorts, but not as extreme as a Corso. But there was extremes you could breed where once it's standardized neo closed stud book, you can only breed to this, do this. There was a standard. Of course, that's almost a complete different breed now. So the Conde de Presa is not a neo. The neo is not a Conde de Presa. Yes, they came from the same. What do you want to say? Start like the Wyoming dog and those dogs at that time. But once an animal is standardized and there's a standard set, that becomes like a whole new animal. The predecessor is completely something different. So that's where I'm going to throw the stake the flags in. Corso, Conde de Presa, neo. It's not this. They're never the same thing. And if you want to wrap them into the same thing, you would wrap it into the past where they were just all mutts. And then the differentiate came when it was standardized and made into a pure breed. So I don't know if you touch on that, Kareem, and then I want to go into them throwing Corso type dogs and Conde de Presa type dogs now currently. But you want to touch on what I said there?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you. I do believe that I think like we were talking before, the Conde de Presa type was your more rustic type neo dog, which was an amalgamation of a bunch of different breeds together. There is no real standard there. So that is like, these dogs kind of share similar traits.
Speak on this. I'm going to use the washroom quick.
Yeah. So I believe the Conde de Presa, like a bunch of different breeds tossed together, they make this type of dog. They share similarities. We'll take that, we'll parcel that, we'll put that on the shelf. Then you had the Neapolitan Mastiff, where you had the registries were made. You had your Mastinaris, whatever. They want to solidify that dog. They have a standard for that dog. Now that dog needs to look a certain way. We are breeding towards this in the dog. So then they take their group of dogs, they start breeding those dogs onto themselves. And then the Corso, that came along. In my mind, the Corso is just and everybody should agree with this, it's a Neapolitan Mastiff hybrid. So that hybrid animal, whether it be your American style Cane Corso, which their base breeds were the Neapolitan Mastiff to a large degree, American Pit Bull Terrier, and Rottweiler. That's your American style. Then you had your Italian style Cane Corso, which would have been your Neapolitan Mastiff, whether they crossed it to a Bruzy and added whatever else down the line, which would have been your Boxer, Bull Mastiff, Presa Canario, what have you. That's your Italian style for those Corso, but the three are not all one in the same. Just to hit the comments right now, John Catcham says, look at the quarter horses. You have a thoroughbred type and a cutting horse type. Then he also says, as long as it's 3/4 horse, it's a quarter horse. There you go right there. The conception of breeds are a new thing. Back then, there were only types. So I feel like, at least this is my opinion, in the dog world these days, I feel like, all opinions need to line up. They all need to match one thing, and everybody needs to agree upon this is the history. But I believe a lot of that stuff is fake. It's kind of like to the victor goes the spoils. To the people who are still standing, they can control the narrative of the breed. And they could take it in whatever direction they want to. You see, this is very prominent in the Corso. The Corso, and this is something I will agree with a guy that I was in contact with before, where he says, Corso is just stolen Neapolitan Mastiff history. And I do believe to a large extent they were stealing the Neapolitan Mastiff's origin story, and they were trying to relate it back to the Corso to give that dog validity through, the test of time, to make it seem like it wasn't a creation or recreation of a dog, which is exactly what the Cane Corso is to me. John says money and ego. 100%, John. It's always money. It's always ego that draws the story of something. Like the money and ego dictates everything. It takes away from the actual truth. So yeah, 100%, I agree on that. So David, when you were gone, I just touched on the same Conde de Presa, Neapolitan Mastiff, Corso being a hybrid, the two different types, American, Italian, and the directions that they went in. And then John goes back to quarter horses. As long as it's 3/4 horse, it's a quarter horse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I heard what you just said, and I agree with all that as well. There's no real discrepancies there. You know, like a point that you
Let me
touched
just
on.
let me get this real quick, David. I also believe that the Neapolitan Mastiff crowd is a exclusive crowd. They are notoriously hard to whelp, notoriously hard to breed. You know, you clearly need substantial amounts of money to really mess with a program with those dogs. And then the argument is going to be like, oh, well, you guys have never owned X amount of Neos. All of that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like that let the argument stand there, but you know, I think it's just like an exclusive dog breed, and they try to keep it exclusive by having a history where everybody's on board and you're not allowed to say boo about the dog because it's always going to boil back to I've bred these dogs for so long. But tell me why that certain breeder 30 years ago in his kennel video, 20 to 30 years ago, why did his dogs not look like all those other Neos from Italy? Why have those dogs dwarfed in size? They look like large blue, like English bulldog Neo hybrids. Like why do those things look like that? And why are we not allowed to question and say, hey, something's not adding up here?
Yeah, that's a good point as well. I want to go back to the thing where you said breeding types, because that's the thing. You know, that's basically to break it down to where people understand it. Before the Neapolitan Mastiff was standardized and accepted as a breed, the name was changed. The Cane de Presto might as well have been just a type of dog. Anything kind of went. Yeah, people like that type. Might have been organizing a breeding program around a type of dog that they like that look, but till it switched to where it's standardized and became a breed, and the name was changed, then that's a breed, and it's something completely different, and you have to go about breeding in a different way compared to pre Neapolitan Mastiff when it was a Cane de Presto. So the type and breed thing is always going to be like I don't know, it's always going to be you're just going to be butting your head up against the wall because people don't understand that the shit that goes or did go on when it was a type of dog does not fly, will never fly in today's breed of time. But what you need to understand is that's why your dogs today will never be or look like the dogs of the past, because the dogs of the past were not a fucking purebred and were not kept to the same standards as a current purebred dog has been kept to. Then to go to the guy's kennel, yeah, go to my videos. You look at a guy's kennel 30 years ago, these Neos look, in my opinion, fantastic. You know, they still look functional, still look very modest in their build, their wetness, their bone, you know, the size of the dog. And then you look currently, and the dogs have shrunk, but then shrunk in height, but then blew up in every other proportion. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Selectively breeding something, you cannot manifest that big of a change in 25 or 30 years. You cannot manifest that big of a change, especially when these guys say that they do not inbreed and line breed these Neos. So that's a big thing. What I want to go back to and touch on as well is this video said today that the Neo is still throwing, or it's known that the Neo throws 3 different types. I just saw I was just fucking. I'm spitting all over the fucking camera. The camera just caught fucking spit to get thrown across the fucking room. Yo, they said they throw 3 different types, and everybody knows that, and that's standardized. The Neo throws 3 types. So why is it okay for the Neo to throw 3 types, and everybody knows this, but we've been preaching for 4 or 5 years now that the Corso throws 3 types, and people say, no, you can't do that. Corso doesn't throw 3 types; it can only throw 1 type. You know, yada yada. Why? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, or is that not how it goes? Why is it okay for the Neos to do that? But then also coming back, the Neo today, if you take 2 extreme Neos, two state show champion Neos, you breed them together, you are not throwing a Corso type dog. People keep wanting to say that you can breed 2 heavy Neos together, and you'll throw 2 or 3 that are extreme like the parents, 2 or 3 that's in the middle, and 2 or 3 that are dry. That is valid under these circumstances. If you take 2 extreme show type Neos of today and cross them, and that dry dog, that dry dog is still a Neo, and it is still so much more, has so much more excess in the wetness, the wrinkle, and the bone than a Corso. It's they throw, yes, in degrees of extremeness. They throw 3 different types, but they do not throw a Corso. In today's time, they do not throw a Corso. Your worst dog in a Neo litter of today is still way more extreme than any Corso is. So there's that.
Yeah, I
And
can agree.
the only reason that they're saying that shit is because, yes, 30 years ago, when the Neos were still kind of being developed, and when you go back 30 years ago, the dogs were so much more cleaner than today. Like these videos that I'm releasing, you're seeing these Neos that were in New Jersey at the shows, Italy, in some of these breeders' yards. They looked like Corsos. They were so much cleaner than the Neos of today. When you bred those clean Neos, 30 years ago, of course you got Corsos. They were borderline Corsos themselves because they were so clean, especially their females. They had a couple extreme males back in the day, but their females were so clean that they might as well have been Corsos. So when you bred those Neos of 30 years ago, of course, their cleanest example or their driest example in the litter was going to be more Corso type because the stock themselves were already so clean. And that's that's the factor that I'm trying to put here. The cleanest dog from a Neo litter 30 years ago and the cleanest dog from a Neo litter in current time are 2 totally different things. Now, I know I'm ranting. I think Kareem somehow got kicked out. I'm going to see if I can kick Kareem out and see if he'll come back in. I'm going to see if I can send Kareem the link here. I'm going to see if Kareem can come back in. Let me see. 1 second here. We get Kareem back in here. All right. Can everybody hear me, see me? Let me know. We back?
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know
All
if that was my phone or your phone.
I'm not sure. I'm running off of a hotspot today, so I don't know if it.
Yeah, that's probably
anyway,
it.
I think you kind of heard what I said. I was just saying that the driest dog from a Neo litter 30 years ago compared to the driest dog from a Neo litter currently is just on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to what they're talking about. It was a Corso years ago in a litter of Neos because the Neos were barely Neos. Some of the females back in the day looked like Corsos. So when you get to the point of today, they're not throwing Corsos anymore. They're still throwing the driest pup is still a Neo.
Because those things that compounded on the Neo are so far gone now. So
Yes.
it's like the stock back then is no longer relevant to how far they are down the line. Yeah, no, I understand that. I also think another thing to look at is the head types of the Neo.
Yeah.
Because those head types do not come back. I mean, maybe you get lucky and I don't know, 1 out of like in a million chance you throw a dog with a dope head type, but for the most part, those head types are gone, and I think that's why in at least the American line Corsos, why people are drawn to them is because it is so reminiscent of that old Neo head, that old Cana Depressa type head.
Absolutely.
If I'm being honest.
Absolutely.
Another thing, when you're going back to the 3 different types of Neos where they're saying you throw 3 different types. So let's say if we take we'll say like the tier 1 old world dogs, the inbred line bred stuff. When those dogs are they're doing their thing. You do a good line breeding on them. You're not really throwing that much different in type at all. It's very minimal, and those dogs are the closest thing going back to Satili's blood, being inbred, line bred on themselves. The extremes are not that crazy. Yeah, you might get a dog like, let's say, Chunk, the closest thing going back to Diesel, but like it's still even not that extreme.
Well, I
It's
think
just
about it, just to not to cut you off, but if you
yeah,
in the inbred old world dogs and inbred Corsos, the discrepancies between extremes is the same extreme that you would see between you and your sister or me and my brother, or it's the same. It's the same differences you see within a family off of two parents. It's very small, if you want to say micro differences between dogs. You still tell they're related. You still tell they're brother sister, and all that.
yeah. So I agree on that. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is this 2025 Westminster Neapolitan Mastiff show where the dogs look like they are more functional than they've looked in a very long time, especially in a show ring. That's very recent. If you go back to 2024, 2023, all the way down to 2012, all the Neos that were championed before then were very extreme in type. Extremely
Very.
extreme type. Another
Very.
thing you need to keep in mind is what is the age of a show Neo, David? What is the age that they're showing these dogs?
Most people, and I'm not saying all, and I'm not saying that there's never been an older example brought into the show ring, but most breeders in the Neos are showing dogs between 2 and 3 years old before they're bred, before they're fully, if you want to say fully matured out. Like, yes, they're mature, but they're not done with the extreme growing or the manifesting their extreme traits. So when you look at those dogs in that Westminster show where you say, oh, these dogs look clean and they look functional, they're still metaphorically puppies. They're still nowhere near finished out with the extremeness. They've not even been bred. So imagine those females there. Once they have a first litter, they're gonna be 50% more extreme after that first litter. Even the male, after he goes on to be 5, 6, 7, will look. You won't even recognize any of those dogs, and that's a fact. That is 100% fact that 90% of the dogs that are hitting the shows for Neos are 2 to 3 years old and are much cleaner than they will be when they're finished out and done maturing and done growing.
Yep, I totally agree. So I think an argument I would have for somebody is go get the ages on all those dogs and
Yeah,
come back and say how old they are. And
yeah.
then I think that would validate a statement a little bit better, is knowing the actual age of the dogs, and opposed to people assuming that they're fully matured out dogs and they're being showed right now, because I think that is a huge point of contention when
Yeah.
I see
Also,
something.
something I want to touch in on is the videos that have been released already, and there's more to come. There's more Neo videos from 30 years ago that I'll be releasing to the YouTube. These dogs, and I don't agree with it, but it's something to keep in mind. Some of these dogs that Satili's showing, some of these other breeders are showing, are a year and a half, 2 years old, and they've already whelped a litter off of them. So they've already whelped the litter. You can see that the dog's stomach is descended. The teats are that of a dog that has nursed a litter, and those dogs still are not as extreme as the current dogs that are being shown in the show ring at 2 to 3 years old that have never even been bred. So to say that these dogs have always come this way, they've always been extreme, they've always been heavy wrinkled, it's bullshit. Go look at these videos that I've been releasing. Look at those dogs. They're the same ages as the current dogs being shown at the Westminster shows, and look at the extremeness in type. One thing I'll touch on before we go forward: the one video I just released, the New Jersey Specialty Show, and I believe that was '89. There's a dog in that show named Deer Run Rufus. The dog looks basically like Kareem said. Looks like it has a ton of Great Dane blood. It looks like easily a 29, 30-inch tall dog, super long, super clean. I love the dog. I think the dog looks fucking fantastic. But that dog's father was Sherman, who was imported by Tobin Jackson at Deer Run Kennels. Now look at this. I have the picture brought up, the cover of Dog World magazine of Sherman. This was that dog's father. I don't know. Can you see that all right, Kareem?
Yeah, that's good.
Like, that was that dog's father. Then go look at that video I showed and look at Deer Run Rufus, this dog's son, and you tell me if there wasn't crossing going on. And I don't give a fuck if it was here or if it was somewhere else or whatever, but to say that that dog Sherman was the father of this dog and they are completely different just goes to show that the dogs have never come always wrinkled. And then I'm just going to show these Westminster dogs just to get people that they've always come extreme. This right
what
here.
date is that? Yeah. What date is that?
This is 2023. Best in Show Neapolitan Mastiff at Westminster. Pretty fucking excessive.
Dope looking dog though. I can appreciate it.
I mean, that's the other thing. I fuck with them. They're still they're still not functional or high quality dogs, but they're still do. I fuck with extremes, but let's not get it twisted. They haven't always come that way. So that was 2023. This goes back. Let me see. I'll try to do it in order so people can get with me here. I believe this was 2023. Yeah, this is 2023. Pretty excessive.
Dope dog, but still extremely excessive.
Extremely excessive. This is the head type, the same dog, 2023. Pretty excessive. Then we'll go 2024. Oh no, that might have been 2020, 2022. Whatever. You get my point. I'm coming forward with it.
And it's all public information. You guys should just go look up of these show champions.
I mean, look at the head on the dog. The body necessarily isn't extreme on this dog. The bone is not crazy. The body's not crazy. But look at the muzzle. Look at the
bone a little bit to the left, just so we get the head. Other left. Yeah. There you go. Other left. There you go.
Look at the dewlap and the muzzle length on that dog. It's not normal. And then this was last year's. This is 2024. That Tony dog that everybody knows. You tell me if that dog is not extreme in every facet.
Yeah.
I mean, phenomenal top line, phenomenal rear end.
The mass is great on it. Like it's wicked.
But look at the head and the muzzle and the just the excess. It's a complete extreme dog. And then we go to
the dog almost looks like it went brachycephalic in the head, which always pushes my argument. If the dog has never been John before said that a lot of mastiffs have pug blood in them. Where is that coming from? Is that inbreeding on whatever mastiff blood's in there, or are you tossing something else in there to get more wrinkle, more bone on the dog? What sort of bull breed produces bone and wrinkle, especially AI? Like, you can pretty much chuck anything in a dog to get an extreme that you want and get it to squirt out like your
2025 Best in Show Neo. Still an extreme dog. Not crazy as it's been, but they're trying to clean up the dogs. Everybody in the Neo world knows that they're trying to get back to a cleaner dog. Now here's way back. This is 2012. Now come on.
Yeah, it's wild. That's wild. Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like it's always. I think the thing that gets me lately, well, not get me lately, it's always kind of like being frustrating. It's like, I think if you have a vested interest in something, especially these long-time neo breeders who need to keep this dog breed exclusive and create demand on it, you need to create a backstory. If the backstory is easily digestible to the public, it's going to make it exclusive. Then it's going to make it hard to get. And then you got to buy into their program, which is the Neo program, which sets you apart from every other dog breed because there are only so many. What was the statistic that I heard? There's like 3 Neo breeders in Ohio versus like 40 or 50 Corso breeders in Ohio. So then they're going to push the argument of what breed is more exclusive. I don't care. To mess with whatever type of dog you like. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect my day-to-day life. But you got to question the truth behind the dogs. And I realized when we went on the adventure with the Corso to get to the point we're at now, it's like everybody gets mad and everybody tries to, well, that's not true. If that was true, then, you're calling me a liar. It's like, yeah, you guys are liars. You guys
Yeah.
are liars because nothing adds up to what you say. That's for most dog breeds.
Yep.
You got like the Borbal. The Borbals like another disastrous show of how this dog came into play. And now you have all these exotic colors, like Borbals are coming pointed and black, and the black Borbals look like Neos, and the blue Borbals look like Neos, and the Borbals weren't ever blue. Back in the day, they were more red and fawns. Like, where are all these colors coming from?
Yeah. And they don't just manifest themselves in fucking out of thin air. And don't try to say that just because a Borbal might have some kind of ancestry of a dog 100 years ago that is pointed, that all of a sudden the dog manifests in 2025 black and tan with rear double dew claws from another breed, and it's all bullshit. Don't
And
don't
it's
don't
not even like
elaborate.
brindle, straight up tan points. Like,
Exactly. It's such bullshit. All these breeds where they try to act like, well, it's always been a part of the breed. I'm not saying that Corsos, Borbals, Neos, Prestas haven't had some kind of a pointed dog in its ancestry from the get go, but it doesn't manifest and just pop out of nowhere in 2025 if you ain't crossing something to make that manifestation happen. Just like
exactly.
just like the dogs here. We have bred the straight Satilli line for how long now? We've yet to pop a fucking pointed dog out of the dogs.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, like the closest you'll get is like this faint brindle, and you're like, "Is that a point?" And it's like, "No, it's just brindling on the dogs." Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. And like I said, I think another thing that I want to touch on, it's like, hold up, comment, Jack Holman, Fawn Corsos incoming. Jack, the Fawn Corsos are all over, brother. Fawn Corsos have been out here. Let me hit this other comment. It says OT. I really have been thinking of getting a breed from another nation somewhere that functionality is still what the dog is used for. So let me touch on that, David, and then you could touch on it. OT, I think that unless you do that specific task that you want that dog for every day, you got to think about the amount of resources you're going to put into a dog to import it from another country. Then you need to think, how are you going to vet that person to get what they say they're giving you? Because most of the time, I believe that foreign countries send their calls over to the US, because why would they give their best dogs away to somebody in America? They're going to want to keep that for themselves to breed and use back into their program where they have hands on and control over the blood. I think there are a lot of functional type dogs over here in the US, whether they be pure or types of dogs. They're cool band dog programs everywhere. They're cool, like mixed hunting dog programs everywhere. And the dogs all perform the task. I don't think you have to necessarily get it from some other nation that, is touting that, yeah, my dogs do this, because then you're gonna fall into the Dogo Argentino curse, where it's like everybody was going over there to get dogos, and apparently the dogs aren't nothing like they used to be.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I'm the same way. First of all, you don't need a working dog in 2025 in the United States. 99% of people do not need no damn working dog for a damn thing. So to go get a dog that's bred for a task, what task do you even need the dog for? Especially, like, maybe if you're a hog hunter or you're trying to actually do some, maybe, but most of y'all ain't doing shit except for just putting the dog in the house. So I would not be trying to do all that. And like Kareem said, to try to, unless you've got exorbitable amount of funds where you can just fly over there and meet the breeders and shake the hands and pick out dogs, unless you can do that, you're going to get raked over the coals trying to communicate with breeders from another country and then get a quality specimen sent over here. It just, I've seen it time and time again up until now. The only person that I've seen brought over a halfway decent quality dog is because they went over there, shook the person's hand, picked out the dog, and brought it over here.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that. I think I was talking to Dave about this morning. It's easy to get sucked into the history of dogs and get all starry-eyed over, like, the storytelling. Everybody loves a good story. And then when you buy that dog, you buy into that history of the story, and then you're just like, I got this. It's so dope. you know, I have livestock actually. Well, I'd say get some sort of herding dog, you know, get a good collie. I was talking to my father-in-law, and he just lost his border collie, but he has 300 head of cattle, and he's like, that collie is the best dog I ever got. Got it from the pound, and the dog did what it was supposed to do, and I think he paid $50 for it. Dog lived until it was like 14. He didn't spend any exorbitant amounts of cash. He got a dog to do its function, and that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, even like the dogs these days, I like to be like, yeah, old world dogs do all this, but really, I just use mine as guard dogs. They don't really do too much. They hang out, they bite at shit, they come hang out with the family, and that's about it. It's nothing too crazy. I mean, if I had more time, probably push for something else. But the reality is, most of us work a job. Most of us have to go to work every day. Your spare time is spent stuff around the property. So, do you really have that amount of excess time? So that's just my argument. Things could be different for you, which I'd say by all means, dude, go do whatever. But I think it's a lot of sifting through nonsense with, especially when dealing with foreign breeders, because they are trying to sell you the story of that nation's dog. Like you could see with the Italians and the Corsos, the Italians and the Neos. It was said, it is known that they sent mixed bred Neos to somebody because they didn't respect them. So what sort of integrity is that on them? This person's spending a lot of resources to get a dog from them, and they're just laughing amongst themselves that they sent them shit.
Yep.
Pardon my language, but that's just the truth. So that's my stipulation on everything. I think America gets a bad rep for ruining dogs, but let's go back to one of the most proven dogs in history, the American Pit Bull Terrier. It says American at the front of that dog, and those dogs have been fire and brimstone since the inception.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear don't nobody come and try to critique that and be like, well, the dogs originally came from Ireland and this and that.
Who refined it? Who put them through? Who put them through whatever to get where they are now?
We've owned the dogs in America for how long, and we have put them on the map. Tell me how many dogs are still in Ireland that have nothing to do with the dogs here in America that have the legacy of the American Pit Bull Terrier dogs. So we have plenty of dogs in America that have been built on form and function that most of you people don't even know about, that have basically been untouched and are still exactly what they were.
Yeah.
40, 50,
and some of the greatest dogs you'll probably never
ago.
get their name because the people don't care. They don't care enough. Some of the greatest dogs are probably just on somebody's yard, and they don't care. Maybe their relatives have a couple offspring off of it or something, but that's where that bloodline goes to die.
Exactly.
You got to think about like the marketing in these dogs. And I think another thing that I've been seeing lately, just I'm getting off course with the Neo. I'm just kind of going into like the whole foreign buying dogs and stuff. I see a lot of Boki is getting a lot of, well, he's had traction, but he's getting more traction. But it's not even Boki selling the dogs. It's a bunch of young guys who bought his stuff, and they're just using him as a validation tactic to buy his line of dogs off of them. But I mean, Boki's dogs to me are arguably like an American blend. They're clearly Neapolitan Mastiff based with some Pit Bull Terrier blood in there. I'm not too sure what the third cut is.
American Bulldog, some kind of
Bulldog. Yeah, I've seen Boki dogs, a black dog that had a American Bulldog face all day. I was like, if I find that picture one time, if I find it again through my phone, I'll get David to post it. I mean, that dog looks like your run of the mill bully type dog from a pound.
Yep, it looks just like the who's the American Bulldog breeder who crossed the black American Pit Bull Terrier and
I can't remember, but I know the dogs that you're talking
about.
Go
look at all the black American Bulldogs that are on the scene. This Boki dog was identical to it, like in every way.
Yep. But it's like, his name has withstood the test of time because he's an older guy now. And now he has these young guys who realize that, the market in America is like, we're looking for the authentic Cane Corso. Well, it's just, he's still mixing whatever he's doing with his dogs, and he's shipping it off over here. But I mean, he's not the one really touting his program anymore. It's these young guys realizing that they could make a buck off his name.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what do you say? No, I'm saying which is essentially what the dog game looks like it is to me when people breed heavily. It's a pyramid scheme. Like
No, it
it's
is. It absolutely is. You got your guy at the top who might be a long, outstanding guy. Then you got all his little disciples underneath of him that back him, and then they go out and sell off of his name, and yeah, it absolutely is. But that's the thing that I'm telling you sets. That's why nobody likes the old world guys, is because we have no real vested interest anywhere. We like the courses, but we're telling you right now they're mixed and it's a bunch of bullshit. And then we're telling you that about every other breed because we've done the digging and found it out that all this stuff is shit. So that's why they don't like us, because we have no vested interest. We don't suck up, or we're not underneath anybody. We're nobody's little homies. We don't got a big homie on top.
just to smooth over that point, we're not saying that the dogs are mixed by us. The dogs from inception: American Pit Bull Terrier, Rottweiler, Neapolitan Mastiff, Satilli Blood, line bred, 30 years, carry on.
Yeah,
That's what it is. But why lie and say, well, these dogs came from Italy and the Super Six is this and that? Well, we know that's not the truth, so we tell people the truth. And
right.
you know, we mess with the American dogs because I think phenotypically they look superior to the Italian dogs, for my opinion. So that's why we mess with them. And I know people who have old world dogs, you know, like David's never screwed anybody over on dogs. You know, honest guy, does his thing. He doesn't want anything back except a little bit of loyalty towards the stuff that you get from him because he puts a lot of effort into those dogs. You know, that's about it. But it's not like these other guys who are like, well, I have this, and you know, if you buy into me and you spend 10K here, you're gonna get this guaranteed proven product. I guarantee you there. Mac just got. Could I put this public information?
Sure.
Yeah. Mac just got studded out to somebody who has, I believe it's like heavy Brick City blood in that dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavy Brick City blood in that dog. That's one of the no, that is the first outcross that Old World is doing. And I guarantee you that Old World blood from Mac crossed into that Brick City line is going to produce phenomenal dogs that nobody has ever seen before. And there's a lot more stuff coming down the pipe. There's some in-house breedings going on, which are going to produce some crazy dogs. Like, you know, you have your prospects. I know one went out to Iron House. That dog is phenomenal in itself. This little Formentino male. Beautiful specimen of a dog. It's like a Moose 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a lot of things are going to start happening in the future because a lot of these foundation line bred inbred dogs are reaching the age where they're going to start getting bred, and then you know the proof is going to be out there. So
Yep. And we don't care what anybody else says. We're still gonna be fucking with the dogs, doing what the hell
yeah,
I want. But
yeah. I mean, like,
I wanna go into a different topic, just because I see this shit, and it's kind of the same thing. You know, a few years ago now, it's these older guys starting dog channels, you know, that don't know shit about dogs, and then they're interviewing anybody and their brother that can come on, and then those people are just spitting bullshit. Nobody's checking them. The new person coming on is hearing this shit, believing it, and then taking it as gospel, and it's fucking up the scene. And then I see these new wave of guys that are hitting the game right now. These young guys that have never owned more than one dog, don't even own dogs currently, don't really know shit about dogs currently as they are. But then they're going out and doing research, which is fine. Go out and do all the research that you want. But as soon as they go and talk to one or two guys, then they're making a YouTube video saying, I found this out. I've been doing this research. This is what it is. You've never owned the dog. You talk to two breeders, and then you automatically make an assumption that that's what it is, that they're telling you the truth. Then you run and make a YouTube video pushing that bullshit nonsense onto the next new guy that's underneath you. It's all so bullshit. If you want to go do your research, and I urge everybody to go do their research, but you need to be doing the research for a span of some time before you can just jump on fucking YouTube and make a video and start portraying or persuading the audience into believing whatever it is you just found out. But you have no basis or nothing to back that up. You're a young guy that's never owned a damn thing, and you're making videos about, you know, long time established dogs. I don't know if I'm wording it right, but I'm seeing all these fucking guys, and I don't care about their age, but when you have no experience, it's the experience mixed with the age thing. If you have zero experience in dogs, and you're going to talking to breeders, and then you're getting mystified in this bullshit fairy tales, then you're going to put it on YouTube to fuck up the next guy. That's where I have the problem. And everybody wants to say Dave's an asshole. I've been saying that since day one. But
Yeah, I feel like that, like, it's like passion is a great thing, but passion is also dangerous when you don't have critique to back it up. Because you can't, like, at least for one thing with Old World, I don't know how many more people there's left to talk to. But that's stacking everybody's story up, seeing what doesn't pan out while doing more research yourself, while looking at dogs that are bred and outside of a breed and seeing the similarities and being like, oh, this is all garbage. Like it's craziness. But you got to be careful because the you could push as much information as you want, but people always will critique it. And if you can't back up the critique, and your only way to back up critique is just blocking the information from hitting your channel, then what are you doing? You're part and parcel just spreading. You're responsible for misinformation. You are responsible for
absolutely,
that.
absolutely, and that's the thing
But
that it blows my mind when these young guys, they even say verbatim in the video, I don't have no experience, but I've talked to these guys that have been in, 30, 40 years. But then he goes on to say, well, they haven't been in, some of them haven't been in that long, but they just understand the breed. What are you saying here? Because how is that guy validated by you? But then over here, we've been doing this for I don't know how fucking long, putting out the videos, exposing the real truth, and we're brushed underneath the rug. And if we comment on any of these videos, like I do, because I don't let nobody go unchecked in the dogs, as soon as you check them, you say this video is bullshit, this information is bullshit, you're taken down. But they also have nothing to rebuttal that point. They don't want to have a conversation, because they'll get crushed in a conversation or a debate because we bring too many of the facts to the table where they're just like, well, I was told this by a breeder.
and then you got to wonder, like, why is the breeder telling this to you? Does the breeder have litters to sell? Does the breeder have anything to gain? He kind of just has free advertising at this point. So you always got to ask yourself that. Like, I mean, over the years, they've been some run-ins, but who's going to stand the test of time? Whose dogs are consistently producing what they're supposed to produce? Who is line breeding, inbreeding, upping COI while still having suitable outcrosses that are still related? It's like, really, time is going to be the great indicator. And I would be curious 3 years from now who from this point in time is going to be around, because I really don't see too many kicking, because the programs are telling on themselves, because they just got an outcross more, outcross again, outcross again. Then before you know it, they just drop. That's usually what happens, especially when dog sales are paramount to your program. It's not the aspect of preserving something.
Yeah.
So it's just a little side note, little side note. But comment section, it's been pretty quiet here. Anybody ask anything? We got ACR blood, especially because what it costs to ship a dog, they got to make it seem exclusive and pure. Yeah, we went over that, but kind of a quiet live. Been a while since we did anything like this, but life gets in the way. The dogs keep pushing, man. That's all it is.
That's right.
Anything else, David? What else you got on your mind?
I think that's it. I think we covered all the points on the Neos that needed to be covered. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think this is another thing that kind of, like, I don't know, man. It rubs me, like it irks me a little bit. I think the
Oh fuck! Do we want to go ahead?
no,
Man, I got something.
I think, something that I realized, it's where people are saying that the dog world is so racist, especially in 2025.
Bro,
It's
God, we
it's
were on the same page. You're going right where I was going.
I don't know. I think let it be about the dogs. It's never about race. It's never anything like that. So stop trying to push just because you're black or you're Spanish or you're whatever, that the white man's out to get you. Dude, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about race in dogs. So I feel like every time that's brought up, it's just a cop out because somebody's trying to avoid the questions that are placed in front of them. And that to me, like the way I was raised at least, is like that's never an issue. It's the quality of character. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with anybody's race. And if anybody wants to be like, oh well, you're not black, you're blah blah blah, dude, I am dark as fuck and I have dreadlocks. Like, I mean, I'm as black as they come. Like, what are we talking about here? You know, so every time I hear that, it's like I'll peep in. It's like, oh, this guy, like even when they talk about David, I'm like, David's tight with my family. David's white as fuck. Like my family's black. Nobody gives a shit. It has nothing to do with race. You know, like you guys got like that shit has to stop. If you're arguing dogs, keep the racial aspect out of it and let the content of your argument be specifically about dogs, history, and your arguments, because the other shit just comes off as a cop out. And then you're gonna start segregating dog communities. What? So it's like, oh, we have, you know, this community and that community. It's all about the dogs. The dogs don't know if they're black, white, brindle, blue, or fucking piebald.
Well,
Like they don't give.
another thing, I don't want to speak on the race shit too much, especially because, you know, Dave's white, so I don't want to talk too much on it. But
The mountains of caucus.
I'm gonna say right here that my fucking kids are mixed, so I got you there.
Yeah, I mean, like
number two,
like real shit.
you know, number two is they always act like, oh, I'm coming to hate on the brothers' channels, and I'm like, all the big dog channels that are kind of getting pushed around are all the brothers. So if I comment on a channel and I just because I'm going against the grain, don't mean I'm being fucking racist just because you're a brother. Like I do the same shit to the white guy channels or whatever. Like but most of the channels right now, come on, are all the brothers. So why are we? What the fuck do I gotta pick and choose who I comment on based on skin color? Like shit.
No, that's crazy. This is America. That's not a thing. Like, I mean, you know, like I say, every time I see that, I'm like, how do you go from dogs to this person is being racist? Like, it's 2025. How does that happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's always about the dog. So every time I hear that, I'm like, well, that's a cop out because you probably don't have a proper argument back. So that's all I got to say about that. And it's always gonna be like, well, he's an Uncle Tom, he's an Uncle this, he's this and that. Remember what Uncle Tom did for the little slave kids. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. It's truth. Shout out Charleston White. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, yeah, man. It's always about the dogs. That just like irked me for a little bit, but I haven't been around the YouTube space in a while.
Yeah.
So just get it out there. Comments, everybody hit in. And like I say, all this boils down. Everybody has opinions, but it's like when your opinions get challenged, the best thing is just like argue it back. You know, stalemate somebody. That's how you win the conversation. Bring your facts, match it up with their facts. If you win, and I know when I lose an argument, I'm like, all right, I got nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
I got best. Then I got to go back to the drawing board about how I feel about something. That's always what it is to get to the truth of something. It's not silencing people and, you know, trying to shut them out of the conversation. It's okay. Let's figure it out. Let's get to the bottom of this. I think that's how it should be, because there's a lot of false truths in these dogs, and everybody just wants to know the truth, man. Not for money. We just want to know the straight up truth.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm on. Other than that, what's happening at Old World? What's new with Old World?
Bro,
You got that Draco litter on the ground.
We have all the litters. It's been a busy year.
That first triple threat shot of blood.
Yeah, we got
in a suitable outcross.
Yep. We did the diesel Lexi inbred litter with the triple threat stuff. We took that and we took it to the bitch Drika, she's related but also majority an out. So we took a dog with a COI of almost 30% and crossed it to a dog with a very low COI, and produced a litter with a very apt amount of inbreeding, but the COI is so low because of not using the same descendants throughout the ped, but we like resurrected so much old blood from the back of the pedigree, brought it forward, and I don't know. I'm excited to see what
You
comes.
got any percentages at the top of your head of what kind of old dogs were coming to the top?
Yeah,
And then I think
there was like we brought up some Malachi dogs to the front of the blood, where it was like 10%. We're hitting 10% Malachi dogs. We're hitting 10% Nobu Malastra stuff at the front of the pedigree, along with other old dogs. But that was specifically this Malachi blood and the Nobu Malastra stuff, which was just basically Sicilian and Belmonte stuff. But those blood percentages were sitting down at like 2 and 3%. But with this inbreeding, it brought those percentages way up to about 10%. So where those dogs are actively going to have a role in like the phenotype and the genetic components of the puppies that came from that breeding. So it's pretty interesting to keep upping the blood in the back and maintaining that blood. That's the thing that people don't do. They want to look at the dogs themselves and don't pay attention to pedigrees and whatever. Do what you want, but when I'm preserving the Satilli blood, and you can say that I have Rocco and Kokomo and all these old dogs' blood in the dogs still to a 10 and 15% percentage in the current dogs. That's 35. It's coming up on. I actually looked at the other day. I think it's coming up on 37 years ago that the Super Six was born, and I still have like 15% of that blood in the current dogs walking around. That's called preservation, people. That's what it's called.
let me hit the comment. QT says, or OT says, an argument is just an exchange of ideas. You never have to agree with the other person. Yeah, I agree. Just an exchange of ideas, and I think a lot of times it's David comes off a little abrasive. He's like a Brillo pad, but at the end of the day, like I say, he gets hyped on the dogs. He gets stoked on the dogs, and that's all the arguments ever were. You did I think you had a little live with Jordan.
Uh-huh.
And it seemed like you and Jordan never really see eye to eye, but I thought, I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. There was like no disrespect, no nothing. That was one of the I was like, yeah, that's good. I was like, that's a fun little argument, fun little thing to sit down and listen to. There's no drama, no beef, no nothing like that. And it's like, I think discussions like that need to happen more often, because in the reality of things, Old World stands on one side and a lot of other breeders, enthusiasts, whatever you have, you're on the other side. But I love to hear the arguments or the discussions or whatever happen. And, that's how you kind of get to more conclusions. And then if you're sitting on the fence about something, you're going to lean to one side or the other side. And that helps everybody on their journey with whatever they're doing with the dogs. So I think that's pretty dope. So that was a good listen.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah,
I think that's, and there's more. There's more to those. There's hopefully more to those to come. I'm supposed to do some other videos with some other kennels, Corso related and not related, just dog talk with other breeders from other
yeah,
breeds.
I
And
think that's
you start to figure out who knows their shit and who doesn't. Because even if I don't gotta be disrespectful, or I don't really have to try to out people. But if you're listening to it and I'm asking specific questions based on these things, and I present that question to somebody and they just kind of divert, or they kind of go into a different subject, or they just kind of blow past it, I would think most people that are watching would be like, well, why didn't he really, why didn't that other guy touch back? You start to see who's full of shit. I think so, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of those other discussions are going to hop up on Bulldog Social Club.
I think so, yeah.
So that's a shout out to Sean. He's doing good stuff over there. So yeah, Sean is I believe a good unbiased source of information for his interviews. So yeah, shout outs to that guy. Just a good old dog enthusiast. He messes around with a lot of the breeds. So yeah,
And that's what it seemed like. A lot of these other guys, a lot of these other new channels, they seemed unbiased, and they seemed, I don't want to do controversy, but cutting somebody out, or not doing content based on this breed, or not doing content based with this individual, is exactly that, biased and starting controversy. And this is another thing that put on, and we'll probably get off because I'm kind of tired of sitting here. But there's always going to be controversy. If there's two fucking people there's going to be some sort of controversy. You cannot get away from controversy. There's two people, there's two differences in opinion, there's two different ideas. There's going to be some sort of controversy. It doesn't mean it's fucking bad, but if you're just sifting through the pile and only picking people on one side, then you're biased and you are creating some kind of controversy because you're not letting people or ideas from the other side flow in and mix with the opposing. And it seems like everybody wants to be unbiased and unconfrontational, but they're really fucking unbiased or they're really biased as fuck.
Yeah, well, you kind of just create an echo chamber, right? Create an echo chamber, and then you censor everybody else, and then if you're into that scene, that's all you're ever going to adhere to. And the opinions on, I believe, like our opinions have changed how many times? Like even what I said from that first Neo video, our third video, then we went back, we did more research, and then we redacted a bunch of that stuff, and then we posted a video after that, and we're like, this is our findings, this is what we feel over here, and opinions change. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't always have to be right. If things change, new information comes to light.
Yep.
So that's how I feel about that. But let's call it. I think that was a hefty, what is it, like an hour and a half or something?
Yeah.
So I guess till we meet again, there will be more news coming down the pipe sooner or later.
More videos coming out. There's going to be an Italian Neo show from about 30 something years ago, and then I'll have the last video I'm putting out is a look at Mike Satilli Sr.'s personal Neos that was part of his breeding program. About a handful of them brought out, talked about, shown around. I'm gonna release that last, but Old World, who's a Corso enthusiast channel breeder, has more Neapolitan Mastiff history and videos that are about to be put out than anybody else in the scene.
Yeah, that's for real. And those videos have never been presented anywhere else.
No.
So it's going to be funny after those videos pop out, who you see clipping pictures of it and they start getting posted all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So till we meet again, guys. Till we meet again.
Peace.
All right.